Well, welcome everyone. Thank you very much, Patrick, for that introduction. I understand people are tuning in from all parts of the world. A special welcome for those of you at the Sheraton Sabang. I understand you've got a big contingent there, so thank you for showing up. I'm in the dubious position of never having had a job. Now, I know for a lot of people that is an embarrassment. That's not something they want to advertise. But I'm happy about it. I've never had a job. I never want to have a job. And you know, it's a funny thing. People come up to me and say, Dolph, what's it like never having had a job? And I say, well, you know, that's a bit like me asking you, what's it like never having been to Pluto? You haven't been, so you don't know. I don't know what it's like having a job, but I don't want to find out, because the friends I've got who do have jobs, they assure me that there's always something funny going on. They don't like their employer, they don't like the people they work with, they don't like the hours, they don't like this, they don't like that. One of the beauties of not having a job is that you can determine every aspect of your life. If you want to sleep in till noon and work till 1 a.m., you can do that. If the next day you want to get up at 4 and watch the sunrise, you can do that too. And there's an element of freedom that you have by being your own boss that you cannot compare with anything else. So, I assume that a lot of you will want to have that freedom. The question is, how are you going to achieve it? Well, for me, I started in business at a very young age. I was 8 years old when I had a fruit stall on the beach in Australia. And I used to buy my product at 1 cent each, and I would sell it for 2 cents each. And I know it doesn't sound like there's much profit in there, but believe me, my profit margin was 100%. And on a good Saturday, I would sell 100 items and make $1 profit, which again doesn't sound like much, but bear in mind, back then my weekly allowance was 20 cents a week. So here I figured out a way where I could earn 5 times my weekly allowance in one day. I didn't want to do anything else. I thought I was in heaven. But anyway, fast forward a bit, because I came from a household from parents who had been through the Depression, they had been through the war. Their belief system was that to do well, really well, you need to study hard. Because by studying hard, you can get qualifications. And with a degree, you can get a good job. And with a good job, you can build a good career. And with a good career, you've got all the financial security that you could ever want. So it was very hard for me to break out of this mold. And in fact, I didn't at first. I dutifully went to university. Of course, I didn't know what I wanted to study, except I knew I didn't like the sight of blood. Still don't really. I didn't want to look in people's mouths all day. I wanted to study law, but you had to practice in the country in which you studied, and I liked the idea of being international. So slowly I eliminated medicine, I eliminated dentistry and law and a whole lot of other practices. And eventually I decided to do engineering. Well, that would have all been good and well, except for one problem. In my first year at engineering school, I realized that not many engineers were wealthy. In fact, many of them were what I would call on the poverty line. They wore shabby clothes, they drove around in old cars, and they had very modest homes. So I took it upon myself to make a study of the rich. I wanted to know, what is it that the rich have in common? And you know, the study took 8 months, and there were very few things that they had in common. It certainly wasn't age, it wasn't gender, it wasn't whether you were born into a rich family or not, it wasn't whether you were an immigrant, it wasn't whether your parents were entrepreneurs or not. In fact, the more I studied it, the more I came to conclude that the rich in general only had 2 things in common. The first of these is that almost without exception, the rich had integrity. In other words, their word was their honor. If they said they were going to do something, they did it. And I'm not here to suggest that if you don't have integrity, you cannot get rich. There are many mafia groups around the world who get fabulously rich, and it's debatable whether they have what we would call integrity. However, I do believe that if you don't have integrity, then the very mechanism by which you become wealthy, that will also be the cause of your undoing. So, that was the first thing. The second thing I noticed that the rich all had in common is that almost without exception, the rich either made their money in real estate or they held their wealth in real estate. And that was a big lesson for me, because I decided at the age of 17, for that reason, to get into real estate, to try and mimic and model those people that I thought were doing very well. Now, Believe me, when I was 17, I looked pretty young, and to get a mortgage back then was not an easy task. In fact, it was difficult. Of course, it was difficult for me to date someone because they all thought I was